Hi, and welcome. I'm Michelle Marchant Johnson, host of this YouTube channel and also of Love Life Coaching. And I'm excited to have with me today a wonderful guest who I've had the privilege of interviewing before. And I love him and his wisdom, and you're in for a treat. And that is the amazing Troy Spry. Welcome, Troy.
Hey, thanks for having me again. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, this is going to be super fun. So, Troy is a multi-talented man. He's up to a lot of really cool things. But what I want to tap into today with Troy is his wisdom on relationships and dating. Troy is a speaker, an author, a certified life and relationship coach, and he also has a podcast called TNTUnleashed Podcast. Did I call it the right name?
That's
TNT.
it. Yep.
Okay, awesome. And he's also got a great wife and daughter. And so he has experience in dating, in a long-term relationship, and marriage. And so we're going to tap into the wisdom. And this interview is really intended to help women out there understand more about men. That's been one of the things that I've enjoyed most in my work, Troy, even though I work exclusively with women. One of the things that I've found that has really helped me in my work with women is interviewing hundreds of men in my man panel events and stuff like that over the years, because then I can help women understand more about men as they're dating them, getting to know them, and establishing relationships with them. So if you will, what I want to do today in our interview is just kind of dance through the initial stages of kind of meeting a man, dating, and some of the things that women may not understand or know in that phase. And then as we move into the relationship and marriage phase or long-term relationship committed phase, some of the things that you think would be important for women to know. Absolutely. So we're tapping into your masculine wisdom here. It's going to be awesome.
Let's do it.
So let's start with the like initial meeting, dating phase. What are some of the things that you think would be important for women to understand or know about men in that phase, recognizing that men, like women, are all individuals, but there's certainly some themes here.
Yeah. In the dating space, it's tricky because things have evolved so much, right? Dating used to be traditional dating was different. There's a lot of courting, and things of that nature. Now people have so many ways to get access to other people, right? I think the thing that we got to come back to though is that ladies can't just show up, right? And I think what's happened because of social media and because, people have been convinced, a lot of women have been convinced that if they just show up and they look pretty, then that's enough when they're dating. And honestly, because men are evolving too, men are looking for connection as well, right? Not just you showing up and sitting there and being the receiver, which is okay. That's a feminine nature thing. But there has to be some reciprocity in the dating process. And I think that's what men are looking for more than ever, is because now, because women have evolved in such a way, what they need now is to feel like women are meeting them halfway in the dating space. And it's not just a matter of the man doing all the work all the time. Now, what does that look like? That doesn't have to look like you going to approach the guy and then asking him out on a date and all those things. It doesn't have to look like that at all. What it looks like is if I plan the date, right? If I plan the date, if I tell you where we're going, if I take the initiative, all the things you want a masculine man to do, that you just say thank you and you're gracious, right? That's a part of this, that you say that you can receive, but also have grace. There's also this idea of, what if I pay for the meal and you leave the tip, right? So it shows that you're invested in this. You're not just sitting there hoping to receive every single thing. I think men the downside right now is men are trying to decipher through the space of who's genuinely for me. Right? Who genuinely wants to be here with me? Not just who wants to get a free meal or be entertained by me. Now, see, I think that's where the battle and the tug of war is. So I think the word to come out of all this is just reciprocation. It's reciprocation. So I want ladies to know that it's okay to reciprocate effort and energy.
This is so interesting, Troy, and I'm so glad that we're diving in here, because I think this is a confusing thing for both men and women in so many ways. Because, I'm a little older than you are. Most of the women that I work with are 40s, 50s, 60s, right? A little more mature. And yes, maybe we grew up in a time where we really did expect men to do all the courting and the dating and initiating. And I think in many ways, a lot of women prefer that. Like a man with a plan is pretty sexy, right? We like that because it makes us feel special. It makes us feel taken care of. It makes us feel like we can be secure with this person, like he has some idea about where he's going, not just for a date, but in life. I think there's some real reasons that women like that. And yet, I totally get what you're saying, where I think men right now, I loved the way you said it, where you said men are looking like who's here for me, who's for me here, like not just there for to be entertained or to have someone take care of them and pay their way or provide them with a nice dinner, but like, is this someone I think you're saying that could be potentially a partner with me that can be my advocate, that can really be there with me? Is that more of what we're saying here too, as well as the appreciation, acknowledgement for the effort and for what a man is providing?
Yep, you're spot on, right? I think it's a matter of, it went from, it kind of, the pendulum kind of swang, right? So men were kind of trained as older men to take the lead on everything. But now some men are saying, can I take my cape off sometimes, right? Can I just get a genuine connection with someone that's not performative? Because otherwise dating becomes very performative for a man. It's like, I got to do all these things to perform for you, to make you feel good about the potential of liking me. When what men are saying is, on the front end, can I know that you're at least genuine, that you are genuinely interested in me? I don't have to perform for your attention, affection, and love, right? And so I think that's where it's almost like this idea of, let's just meet halfway. Because what we got to think about, Michelle, is women are evolving in every other space of life.
Right.
But then they only want this part of it to be traditional. You see? So it's like men are confused. They're like, oh, but that might be disrespectful to think that I'm going to just take control of the situation and plan everything and do all these things. That she might be put off by that. So if you have a genuine connection that's really based on a give and a take, then I think that becomes more genuine.
Mm-hmm. So besides, I think this is so important. So besides a woman being gracious, being appreciative, acknowledging, and being reciprocal in certain ways, what are some other ways that a man would feel that that's a connection, or that is someone that is, as you said, there for him? Like, is there for him. If you're saying, because I do think that a lot of women don't necessarily think that men are necessarily seeking a connection, or at least not in the same way. Maybe they're looking for a hookup or a sexual connection. But what you're talking about goes beyond that. It's a deeper kind of connection, if I'm hearing you right.
No, you're hearing me right. I think it's little things, right? Connection is created in the margins, is what I call it. Right. So it's sometimes, can you send the first text? Can you initiate the phone call? Right. If we've gone on 3-4 dates, can you now plan one? Right. It's the marginal things. It's, can you pay me a compliment every once in a while? At least let me feel like I'm desired as well. All right. Because men don't hear compliments. They don't hear stuff like that. We walk around hoping that a woman likes us back. And that hoping is tiring. So men are just saying, just give me a little bit, right? So you know how for example, when a guy texts you or texts one of the ladies that you're talking about, and you brighten up and you smile because you're like, oh, I'm hearing from my guy today. Well, if you brighten, guys are getting brighter if they get a text from the girl first or from the woman first, right? So little stuff like that is what adds up over time, you know? So to me, that's what it's about. Also, little things like, you know, when men talk about things they like and men talk about things that they desire, are you listening enough to actually do something about it? So if I say I love to read, could you show up at a date with a book, right? If I say I love music, could you buy me my favorite record if we're consistently dating? Men just want to feel considered and thought about. It's not that we need women to take the lead. We just need some reciprocal energy.
Yeah, I want to come back to this whole idea of the paying thing, because I think this is another area that gets confusing. Just for a second here. So in my dating experience, I always loved it when a man planned and paid for at least the first couple of dates, right?
Absolutely.
Totally agree. Without me pulling out my purse, without me paying for a tip or whatever. Now, I do like to think that I was appreciative and thanked him and was gracious. But I always liked that, again, because it comes back to this idea of like, it felt like I was being kind of taken care of and that he cared enough to plan something and execute something. That having been said, my pattern was that if I went out with a man for a few times, 3-4 times, he planned the dates, paid for the dates, then I would do something reciprocal. I would plan a date and pay for a date. Like, for example, with my husband and I, we'd gone out a number of times. He'd taken me on some really nice dates. And then I had, before I'd even met him, bought these tickets to this Michael Bublé concert. I had these great tickets. And so I just invited him to go with me. And I said, this night will just be my treat. So I paid for the dinner. I had already bought the tickets. We went on this really fun date and I treated him and he loved that. And so that felt like, it felt balanced to me. I feel, for me, and I want to hear your feedback on this. For me, it always felt awkward to go like, should I pull out my purse? Should I offer some money? Should I? Like, that always felt like so weird to me. But I'd like to hear your take on that, just for a little more clarification.
Yeah, I think the effort of attempting to pay still means something. I think there is something too in the first few dates, allowing yourself to be taken care of. Because most men, if they really like you, will take care of you. It's when it consistently starts to be like, okay, she never even offers, she never even adds any value to the dates. That's when it's like, am I being used? Right? Am I being appreciated? Those types of things, right? So for me, I don't think it's awkward at all, because you got to think, women now are saying, I don't need you to take care of me. Right. I have my own things, which is okay. That's that evolution, that progressiveness is awesome. But you have to back that up in some ways. Right? You have to back that up. You can't live this high lifestyle over here, but then over here in the dating space, it's like you don't have anything, or you can't contribute to it. So I think that's where, you got to kind of do that dance.
Yeah. And I want you to say a little more. This is something else that you said. There's so many gems here already, Troy. I'm like diving in here. I want you to say a little bit more about this whole performative thing, because that's one thing that I've heard occasionally from my husband. Is he says, like, men, he's like, we're under a lot of pressure. He's like, our value is based on what we produce. He's like, for women, you are seen as having like this intrinsic value, whether you're producing or not. But he's like, show me a man without a job and see how much he's respected in society, right? And I'm like, wow, I'm kind of getting that, right? Like, he's like, you have to understand that for a man, we are constantly feeling like we're sized up or valued based on what we're producing. And that kind of goes along, I think, with this whole performative thing. And then along those lines, I'll just say this and then I'll let you jump in here. I've also tell me if this is true, I've also had some men that have said to me over the years, as men, we only have like 2 or 3 great date ideas, and then we're kind of out of date ideas. So it would help if you kind of helped come up with some great ideas and fun things to do.
Yeah, no, this is good. Let me take the latter question first around the date ideas. So we have access to information now. So men, you have no excuse to not be able to plan decent dates. You have ChatGPT, you have Google, you have social media. You can find ways to be creative. Now, what I will say is most women that have been with a man a long time understand that men are very habitual people, like creatures of habit that tend to do the same things. So we like simple things, right? But for women, they like newness, right? It makes them happier. It makes them feel, valued and things of that nature. So that's another part of meeting me halfway. Is saying, what if, hey, babe, I'll plan this unique date that I thought about. Can you sponsor it? Right? Can you pay for it? That's fine. It's just like men want to sometimes not have to think so hard. to be performative, which leads me to the next point, which is the idea of being performative as a man. Your husband is absolutely right. Most men walk around from being little kids, little boys, thinking that everything has to be performative for them. What you produce. Men are appreciated for what they produce. Women are just acknowledged for who they are, right? And I think that's a problem in society in a lot of ways, right? It's like if you don't have something, then you don't have a lot of value. Now, my challenge to men here is there's a such thing as relational value that you have to develop as a man, as we become more progressive, right? You have to have relational value. You have to have intrinsic value. You have to think of yourself as a whole person and not just a producer. And you have to be able to share that value with women as well, right? And that also comes back to emotional capacity. So I challenge men on that. I know how they feel because I have felt that way. But at the end of the day, you got to bring something else, because even if all you do is perform and produce, if you can't do those other things, you'll still lose a woman. Right? Mm-hmm. You'll still lose her because she won't feel connected to you. Right. So I think we have to challenge ourselves to do it differently. And I also challenge women in this way. And I say, look, you cannot ask men to become evolved in other ways beyond production and performance and then punish them for when they do. Right. So when they become full emotional beings, when they become emotionally intelligent and vulnerable and relational and all those things, you can't now see them and view them as weak. You also can't take that away from them when they don't have something to provide. If I get laid off, right? If I'm out of work for a couple months or whatever, do you treat me differently? Do you see me differently? Are you less attracted to me now? Right. So there's some work to be done on both sides around this performative piece of manhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, that's so interesting. My husband and I went through a period of time where he lost his position and was unemployed for a period of time. And I could tell it was just incredibly, incredibly difficult for him. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that became really clear to me during that period of time was how important it was for me to continue to believe in him. Mm-hmm. To look beyond the moment where, maybe he's feeling a bit down and out, mm-hmm. and trust that he's going to get back again to where he wants to be, to where he feels like he needs to be. And, I'll just tell you a little funny bit about that too, Troy. This is something that I also learned during that experience. So when this first happened, I was like, quote unquote, helping him, right? I was like doing all these searches online. I'm sending him all these leads for all these jobs, and I'm doing all this kind of stuff. And I was kind of coaching him, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. On how I kind of thought this whole job search thing should go. Mm-hmm. And I was confused, Troy, because he didn't seem to be appreciating it a whole lot. And I'm like, mm-hmm. thinking, here, I'm putting in all this effort to try mm-hmm. to help him. He doesn't seem to be appreciating it. So one day I said to him, honey, Benjamin, what can I do that would most help you at this time? And he said, just believe in me and trust me that I'm going to get this done.
That's it. Because the way it could be taken is that you are pressuring me to now get a job faster, mm-hmm. right? When sometimes I just need you to be supportive. And so I think an important question to ask is, what does support look like to you in this season? Right?
Mm-hmm. Love that question.
If we don't ask those types of questions, then we have assumptions, and it could be doing the opposite of what it is that you want it to do. So I love that story from you. I think a lot of women have probably been through that, where they thought they were being supportive, but they really made him feel like he was being condemned almost, right? So,
right. Yeah. Well, I do think it made him feel like I didn't think he was doing it right, which mm-hmm. truthfully, Troy, I kind of didn't. I thought he should be doing it a little differently.
Absolutely.
So, because I was like thinking, okay, if I'm in this situation, this is how I'm going to handle it. Well, his way of approaching things was a little different than mine. And it wasn't necessarily wrong. It was just different, right?
It was just different. Mm-hmm.
And he got the result he needed. But when he told me that, I thought, okay, I need to back off from my help mm-hmm. and allow him to do it in his way, which then he did a whole lot better, actually, after I got out of the business of helping. So it's kind of interesting. And when he just said, I just need you to believe in me and trust me that I'm going to get this done. I'm like, okay, I got it. But that was a big learning message for me because I really thought I was helping.
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Yeah. So just that power of believing in a man. And I think that comes back to this whole idea there. It's all tied together of a man having value above and beyond his performance and his production value and that sort of thing. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you're saying that. I hope everybody is watching is hearing that, right? Is that we need to be seen as a comprehensive human. That's the only way that we will evolve and see ourselves that way, right? We have to be able to see ourselves that way because people appreciate that we are that way, right? So I think that's a key to bridging the gap between men and women.
Well, I also think this leads to another topic that I think is really important, and that is I think this also helps create an atmosphere or a climate where a man can be vulnerable. He can show his real self, his full self, maybe when he's not hitting everything perfectly, hitting all the shots, so to speak, in life, right?
Yeah, it's, what's interesting is vulnerability is an interesting thing for men because on one hand, it opens up the door to intimacy with a woman, right? But on the other hand, it's the most weakest place you'll ever be with a woman. So I think when a man decides to be vulnerable, that has to be handled with like white gloves. It has to be handled with care. And it can never be something used that's weaponized, right? I think what happens is when we become vulnerable, we kind of touch that stove that we've been told not to touch our whole life. The minute that it becomes weaponized it takes us like 10 steps back, right? The idea of opening up again becomes so hurtful, right? That you're like, I'm not going there. And so women tend to feel disconnected from their men, especially in long-term relationships, because they don't feel like I'm getting to know you, right? Intimacy is like intimacy, right? And if that's the case, that takes vulnerability. And so I think like I would challenge every woman, if you finally get a man to a place where he is feeling safe enough with you to be vulnerable with you, that you handle it with the most care possible. Care possible. And I love this one question is, I love for women to say, tell me more. And if he doesn't have more, that's okay, right? Don't keep pressing the issue, but tell me more. Like if he gets going, you ever got a man that keeps going about something that he's passionate about, or he'll keep going. Don't interrupt and then inject yourself. Just sit there and learn, because that's where you're going to learn so much about him.
Love that. Love that question. Tell me more. Another thing I've learned in talking with men and also in my own relationship is we also, as women, have to allow the space and time for a man to process and to share more. So what I find sometimes we do as women is we'll ask a man a question and he's thinking about it. He's thinking about his answer. Yes. And before he can answer, we've already jumped in with another question or ideas on what we think he might be thinking. Right?
My wife does this to me often. Like it's like a question I'm sitting there thinking about, maybe did I hear her right? Let me figure out what she's saying. Or I might have been trying to multitask in my head and I didn't quite hear her right. But I've got 4 other questions before I got to the first one. And I'm frustrated because I'm like, listen, give me a chance to just answer you. Right. And so sometimes I think women can receive our processing as ignoring them. And a lot of times that's not the case. Right. So we have to have this skill of saying, did you hear what I said? Or did you it's simple stuff, like simple little check-ins. Did that make sense to you? And just let him think. But if you just keep pouncing and pouncing and pouncing, it's like, oh my gosh, here she is again. So no, I totally agree.
Yeah. So I encourage women out there to pause, and that silence can sometimes feel a little awkward or uncomfortable. But what I've found in my conversations with my husband is if I just give that space without jumping back in with another question, or do you think this, or do you think that, like I'm assuming he didn't understand my first question or something, which he did. He's just processing to come up with the best or the right answer of what he wants to say. then I find that I get a lot more coming from him than if I'm peppering him with these questions. See, my husband is an attorney, so he's very specific about words. He's very intentional about the language that he's using. So he thinks before he speaks. And I've found that that is something that I have to be aware of, or I do tend to do this thing where I jump in without giving him the space. And I love your question, tell me more, because it's very open-ended. It just creates an open space for a man to share.
Absolutely. And it's also like, you see people on dates a lot of times, right? And the woman, probably a lot of it's based off nervous energy and how we're socialized, is just going and going. And the guy's just listening and receiving and listening and listening and letting it go. She could come off that date and say, he wasn't a good conversationalist, right? But was it that he's not a good conversationalist, or was it that you didn't know how to ask good questions or be quiet long enough to allow him the space to talk? Right. So a lot of times when men start to talk, and one of the most frustrating things in the world for men is to be cut off. And when we get cut off too many times, we just stop talking.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also another thing that can be kind of tricky in conversation is, that balance, especially in the early stages of dating and sometimes like that, because I hear from women, sometimes men dominate the conversation, bragging about themselves or talking about themselves. Yes. Maybe they're nervous. Maybe they're trying to impress the woman. And they're not necessarily asking the woman anything about themselves. But it can also go in the other direction where a woman is talk. Maybe she's nervous, or maybe she's not giving him much of an opportunity, or maybe she's jumping back in. I think so often in conversations, we're so busy thinking about the next thing we want to say, we're not really listening and paying attention.
We're not present. That's why I love like these like conversation type cards, right? So if you have those types of things that influence conversation, it makes it a space for both people to talk and have an opinion about something. But if you're going to go on a date, or even with your mate, have 5 to 10 questions already in your head that are open-ended questions that you want to ask or get out, because that is the art of creating conversation. Most people just show up. Then what happens? You get the same questions over and over and over again. Where you from? What you do? What's your favorite color? All that stuff. But realistically, you want to let somebody walk away from a date feeling really good? Ask some intriguing questions. To me, it shows a level of intellect, number one. It shows a level of interest. It shows that you put a little effort into the date as well. Right? You didn't just show up thinking that all you had to do was just be there and exist. Right? So that's just another tip there for people: is do some research before you go. Learn some stuff about the person that you're talking to, and then have some planned questions on both sides, men and women. That's where you're going to find a better connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great suggestion. And I always recommend that with my clients, that they have some fun, interesting, open-ended kinds of questions that they can come to a date with that are likely going to lead to some interesting conversation, even if they're not a love connection, right?
I mean, you love when someone says, that's a good question, right? That's what you're looking to get. It's like you want something that makes someone think about something. Otherwise, it's just autopilot, and then no one feels connected.
Yeah, so I want to ask you one more question about dating. Then I want to ask you a little bit about your own relationship and how you decided to choose the woman that you're now with, and some of the things you've learned in your marriage about relationships. But before we dive into that, the last question I want to ask you about dating is a question that women ask me all the time, and seems to be one of those not so happy dating trends, and that's about ghosting. And so, one of the things that seems to happen is people are kind of having a good connection, or at least it seems that way. And it's not that women don't ghost, but I work with women, so they're talking about men ghosting. And then someone just like drops off the map. What do you think's going on with that? Like, why in general do you think that's kind of a thing or a phenomenon? Has it always gone on as much as it does now? Or what do you think is going on behind that? I know individual circumstances might vary, but
No,
it's not a happy thing.
It's a great topic. I think we need to talk about it. Number one, I don't agree with ghosting at all, right? I think it's very cowardice in a lot of ways. But I do understand why some people would do it, right? For me, the reasons that come to mind, number one, they're involved with someone else, right? And it's easier if I didn't get immediately what I wanted from you, then it's easier for me to just drop off than it is for me to try to have a conversation about it because I don't have the time or space to really pursue you the way in which I thought I could. That's one. Number two, they just weren't that interested. And if they just weren't that interested, it's hard as a man to be the bad guy, to realistically have a conversation and say, hey, I just don't, I don't think this is going to go anywhere. I'm not really that interested. I'm not that attracted. That's a hard conversation to have as a man because you don't want to hurt her feelings, right? And you also don't want to open up the door for her to ask you 1,000 questions about why. Like, why?
Right. You don't want the interrogation.
That's coming. And you're like, I'd rather just fall off the map a little bit. I think that's part of it. Some people are just scared of confrontation. They feel like this could be a confrontational thing if we have this conversation, right? So I think that's a part of it as well. But the other part of it is there's so many options right now. Like you heard of FOMO, like fear of missing out. But if you're on a dating app and you're swiping, I feel like there's so many people that have so many options, perceived options, right? Because they're not realistic options for them.
Right.
They're perceived options that they feel like they could just surface level swipe. And it's nothing, it's no problem, no harm, no foul if I just stop talking to you. Because they assume you're doing the same thing, right? I do think if you've only talked to somebody a couple times and you don't talk to them again, that doesn't mean, if you don't talk to them again, that's fine. But when you've invested in someone, you've been on dates, you've talked on the phone, you've got to know each other, they've invested time and energy and effort into you, I think you deserve for it to be a mutual kind of discussion about this, right? Otherwise, it's very hurtful for both parties.
It is hurtful.
For men and for women. When men get ghosted, their feelings are hurt. They just act like they aren't. And for women, they're left feeling rejected and hurt, and there's no like closure around it. So that's what I think it's going on.
Right. And that's the word I always hear from women. I just want some closure. And, again, I talked to my husband about this one day and he said, well, you have closure. It's just not the closure you wanted.
The decision has been made.
Right. And I thought, well, yeah, that's true. That's one way to look at it. You do have closure. It's just not the closure you wanted. But I also do understand that it's awkward or that it's tricky, no matter which side of that equation you're on. It's tricky to have to tell someone you're not really that interested or you don't think it's going to go forward. And yes, people want to know the reasons why, and you don't want to get into all of that. So I do think that's tricky. And I do think you're right. I think we live in this world of perceived options, of so many different options. I mean, like you said, any person can be looking online and see all these attractive people. They're not necessarily going to be the ones that are interested in you, but there can be a perception, oh, wow, there's all these women out there, or all these men out there that I could be with potentially. And I do think that's a factor. I wonder if there's an easy way, or an easier way to break the news to this. Like, what would be your suggestion, your protocol for a woman or a man if they need to say, I just don't think this is going to move forward, but I wish you the best.
I think it's that simple though, right? It's I just don't think we're aligned. Right, because alignment is important. Alignment could be looks, it could be values, it could be seasons of life, whatever. I just don't think we're aligned at this point, and I just don't see this moving anywhere. So thank you so much for the time that we spent together, but I won't be moving forward. I'm going to remove myself from the situation. Simple. Now that sounds simple coming from me, right? But it's hard because it's emotional. You know what I mean? So
it is. It's simple. It's simple in terms of the language. It's hard in terms of doing it and also hearing it. But I also do think that does allow someone the ability to move on. and not like be haunted or wondered. I also think that it's important not to give all kinds of reasons, well, I noticed your, bad breath or whatever, what, because I think when we start giving the quote unquote reasons other than, I just don't think we have that indescribable something or that kind of connection that is going to support a long-term relationship. When we start giving reasons, then people are either going to be really offended, try to talk us out of it, or, try to convince us otherwise that we're wrong about whatever we perceive. They'll get defensive.
Or insult us, right? That's another part of it.
Yeah, or insult.
Some very immature men will get very defensive and feelings hurt, and they start saying mean things, right? The same thing, I've seen women do it too. So everybody does, we say we're adults, but everybody's not mature, right? Especially emotionally mature. So you have to work on the assumption that I am removing myself, you aren't ruining something, right? I'm just removing myself from the situation.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad we covered that topic because I think it's an important one. So, Troy, I want to shift gears a little bit now as we're moving into the phase of your relationship. I know you were with your wife for a while, then two of you got married, your wife, Tiffany, and now you have a beautiful daughter, Kinsley, who you've told me before she runs the show. She's in charge, right? Queen
Absolutely.
Kinsley, that, right?
Queen Kinsley, yep.
So, you're a good looking guy, Troy. I'm imagining you dated quite a bit, could be with a lot of different women. And so women are always curious, like from a man's perspective, what makes one woman, like in your case, what made your wife, Tiffany, stand out, or what were some of the things that you did appreciate and have appreciated about her that made you choose her in terms of your long-term partner, marriage partner for a relationship?
Yeah, no, it's a great topic, great question. The first thing I would encourage women about though is the man has to be in a season that he's looking for something, right? You can be the perfect woman in a bad season, and it doesn't matter if he's not aligned to commitment or marriage or a long-term relationship. If that's not where he is, you can't make him become that person. Right now, he can get his act together because he realized the risk isn't worth the reward. The risk of losing you isn't worth it. He can do that, but you're not going to make him be ready. So I want to preface it by that, because women walk around blaming themselves about things when realistically it's not them, it's him. Right, let's just be honest. Now, when a man meets a woman, I can talk about myself personally. There were a few things that were really, really I'm sold on. Right, number one was attractiveness. All right, let's just be honest. That's
right. The physical attraction. That's there. That's important.
That's an important part of the puzzle. And a physically attractive woman that takes care of herself, she feels better about herself. So she gives off, my second point, she gives off a certain aura, right? So there's this aura that my wife had that was highly confident, but it wasn't just because of physical attractiveness, because she had intelligence and she had swagger, she had confidence. Right, I saw her having these. She walked in rooms and they lit up. Right, it wasn't because she was arrogant; it's because she had good energy. And a woman that walks around with good energy will attract men a lot of the time. If you ever go out in a space with a bunch of women, you can always tell the ones that have bad energy and the ones that don't. A lot of times, the women that are having conversations with men a lot in spaces, it's because of their energy. It's not necessarily because they're a 10 on the scale. Right, you might see a 7 or a 6. But everybody's talking to her. It's because of the energy she gives off. So that's number 2, really good energy. Number 3, I was looking for attributes of a wife, right? In the future, like, okay, is she nurturing? Is she kind? Can she hold her own with a friend group? Because if friends are really important to you, or if work is really important to you, could she fit into those spaces? And you can see that, you can collect data on those things as you date someone. How do they act in social settings? Are they awkward? Are they not? You know what I mean? Are they caring? Do they care about me? All those things we talked about in the first part of the conversation. Are they caring? That was important to me, right? And then also, was she reciprocal? Was she willing to invest as much as I was? Was I the one always leading everything, or did she add some value and she complimented me in certain ways? That was, to me, that's very attractive and that's very sexy, because it makes you feel the word we used earlier, which is genuine. Was there a genuine connection? And finally, the last thing was, could she be a good mother? Like I watched, because I was in a season where I knew I wanted kids. Now, if you don't want kids, then that's different. But how someone handles their kids can tell you a lot about them. Right? So that's another thing to be looking for. That's kind of how my journey went. Those are the things that I consider. So I don't want women to think like they have to be performative and do all these things. But the question is it who you are? If it's just who you are, then you don't have to fight hard for it. You know what I mean? You just have to be. And if you exist because you've developed yourself to be these things, then you'll be attractive.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're saying this because, yes, the physical attraction piece is certainly important. And, like I said, I tend to work with women who are a little more mature. That's still important to them. And I think it's still important to men that are more mature, not just, when we're younger. And of course, one of the things that women are worried about is as they age, they may not feel as attractive. And so I love what you said about this energy that your wife, Tiffany, has, and that is going to be you're going to be an attractive person to a lot of people, no matter what your age in life. If you're seeking to take good care of yourself, because like you said, when a woman takes good care of herself, she feels better about herself. So that's part of that energy. And then B, if you have that energy that is inviting, that is warm, you talked about kindness, you talked about her being there for you, with you, the reciprocity. One of the things that I talk to the women about a lot is because a lot of the women that I work with have been very focused in careers for the vast majority of their life. So they can kind of have a bit of a masculine type approach to life and energy. Some out of necessity because they've never really had any other option or anyone else to really rely on. And some kind of, that's just become like the habit or the pattern based on their lives. So one of the things I talk to them about is just warming up their interactions with men, with people in general. And I think this warmth is really appealing. So, for example, I work with a lot of women that live in New York City where, it can kind of feel like survival of the fittest in this in the city. It's, fast paced and, everybody trying to get ahead and, a lot of pushing and shoving to kind of just get down the street and that kind of thing. And so one of the things that I share with women, and I think this kind of goes along with this energy piece, is before they send a message, whether it be online or before they go on a date or before they talk to a man or answer a man, consider, I say, run it through the warmth meter. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be overly emotional or overly gushy or anything like that, but like warm it up a little bit. The tone of voice, maybe your facial expressions, maybe slowing down a little bit instead of just being so brisk and so quick and so to the point, like just warming things up a little bit. So do you feel like I'm on track with this as far as this energy piece goes? Is that a big part of it?
Oh, you are 100% right? A lot of times what I hear from men when they finally get into a relationship, right, with a woman, what they say is, I just loved her energy. And what that looks like is what you're talking about. For example, men don't want to be talked to like they go into the HR office or like their mom is talking to them, right? That becomes very unattractive really fast. But for a lot of women that have been in corporate for a long time, that's the lingo they've learned in a masculine space. So I get it. But that warmth meter you're talking about, that is a huge separator, right? To a man. Hugely important. Because if I can get a woman to say, hi, handsome, right? Versus to whom it may concern, you know what I mean? It's just different. The energy is different. It makes me feel like connected. You know what I mean? Like she actually sees me versus she's just trying to get me to perform for her, right? So yes, what you're saying is that warmth meter. That's how women who may not be, tens, like I said, on the scale. A lot of times men end up with those women because they make them feel good about themselves, right? In their energy. So instead of trying to compete on the physical scale with the 10, well, you should try to compete, just try to look good and take care of yourself. But understand there's small little things that, I mean, men aren't as shallow as I think women think we are. Not men who are like just normal men. They're not as shallow as we think. To be talked to in a calm voice with calm and nice warm words is like a gift. It's a gift. That's why we love, like, you ever like see men with daughters and their daughters aren't like jaded in any way, and they come in there, they're super soft with their dads, especially when they're young. I had this from my daughter. It's just like, hey, daddy, I love you. Or they come lay on you. It's like, hey, how you, daddy? You look handsome today. Things like that. Oh, it never goes away.
Melt your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned this too, because this is something else that stood out from what we talked about a little bit earlier, was the importance and the rarity, sadly, in many cases, of compliments from men. So I've had men say that they feel like they've received so few compliments in their lives that they might still remember a compliment they got from like 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, man, that's like painful, right? No, not that he remembers it from 20 years ago, because, wow, wonderful he has that memory, but that it's so rare that that's like the last big compliment he can remember.
Most of our compliments only come from producing things. I got a raise at work. Oh, good job, honey. Right? Oh, I won the championship. Oh, great. You're awesome. But normal things that men do, there's not like a compliment system for that.
Wow. So what would be some of the kinds of things that women could notice and potentially compliment a man on, besides, above and beyond, outside of these producing or performative types of things, like the work or the money that he's bringing in, or the not that he shouldn't be appreciated for that, but it sounds like we got to expand out. We got to think more about what we really value and appreciate in a man, and maybe let him know a little more about it.
Oh, let me tell you, if women knew how simple it was, they would do more of it. As simple as, oh, you smell wonderful. What are you wearing? Right? Or, oh, I love that fresh haircut. That looks good. That looks good on you. Oh, I love how your outfit fits today. Did you get it tailored? Right? Or, your shoes look really, really new and shiny. Like, did you do something to them? They're simple things. Oh, I see you look well-groomed. Like, if a man is well-groomed, tell him about it. Like, the things we do to try to impress women, right? Somebody, you think he's spraying on cologne for men?
Right.
He wants to walk past a woman and have her say, oh, you smell amazing.
Right.
You see, that's what he wants to happen. So,
right.
So it's those small things. It's not like you got to go and, like, I would tell women, just like you look up anything else, research. What are great compliments to give men? I bet you a million ideas come up, right?
Yeah.
When we hear them, it almost always makes us smile because we don't hear them often. Like, a lot of women get turned off by compliments because they hear them so much, right? They're like, come with something else, right? Just tell me something else other than I look good, right? We're like, please tell me I look good today. Please, somebody. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, so noticing him, and noticing not just what he does, but like who he is. I think men like to be acknowledged for their knowledge, or if they have an expertise in a certain area, or they give a valuable insight or piece of advice, that kind of thing. One of the things that I tell the women to do when I'm coaching is I say, go out there and catch men in the act of doing good.
Perfect.
Like, I mean, like, notice the young guy in the grocery store that's helping an older lady get something off the high shelf. Notice the guy who's out with his lady and is treating her so kindly and is speaking to her so kindly. Notice the guy that's like helping someone across the street shovel all the snow out of their driveway, like just catch men in the act of doing good. Because I feel like when women are able to do this, when they're able to like approach things from that point of view, they start noticing men in a different way, which helps if they've had negative experiences or disappointing experiences with men, can help shift that perception of men in general. But it also can give a whole lot of ways that we as women can be in the mode of noticing things to compliment or appreciate men for. And, like, I mean, I've just said, like, I've tried to do some of this in my life, and it's just amazing. Like, just the smallest things that I compliment someone on, how it makes their day. Just a guy stocking the shelves in the grocery store. I was saying, this is looking so neat. You're doing such a good job here. He's like you, like the smile, like it lights him up, right?
Let me tell you, it's I think a question that a lot of ladies have to ask themselves is, why is it so easy to criticize a man, but so hard to find things to compliment?
Ooh.
Like, because that can become an internal issue that you might not be aware of. That's a whole other conversation, right? But I find that it's fair. Men grow up being criticized for almost everything they do because they are seen as the people that can take it. Right. So we're always being coached. We're always being criticized. We're always being told to do something better or different or whatever. So we grew up our whole lives just learning that. So that's why the value we place on someone that values something we do is so high. Right. Or that's why we value a compliment that high. That's why we value acknowledgement that high or appreciation that high, because we don't get a ton of it. The things that we do right from a man's perspective are things that we're supposed to do. Right. That's why it's of high value. So if you're in a dating situation or in a marriage or whatever it is, if you catch men doing right things, they will love you for it.
Yeah, this is so fun, Troy. I feel like I could talk to you all day. We'll definitely have to do this again in the future, because I feel like we've touched on some really important things today, and I love talking to you and love tapping into your wisdom and bouncing these topics off of you. And so I want to give you a chance, though, and we're going to put Troy's full bio and some more information about Troy in the description here. And Troy, I know you have a book that you've written. I want to give you a chance to share a little bit about that, a little bit about what it's about, and then we'll have the link to the book also in the bio, and anything else that you want to add is kind of like final words too here to top this off.
I'll try to keep it very short and sweet, right? My book is called Teach Me How to Love, Why What You Don't Know Will Hurt You, right? So emphasis on why what you don't know will hurt you. And I wrote that book because I went through life understanding, talking to thousands of clients and people I know and all these anecdotal type stories, understanding that we don't have a recipe. We don't have a really good recipe. What we're really left with is what we saw, right? But there's not a lot of teaching of the skills and how to survive seasons and all these things. So I kind of take you on a journey of things I learned, but also things I've learned from other people and scenarios that they've been through and how to love someone better, right? The things and it's not a hard book. It's like a 100-page book, right? But it will challenge you. I tell people it's not a how-to book. It's a self-reflection book is what it really is. Because you exit that book realizing, I got some more work I got to do. But I also have some tips on how to get better in these areas. So I would encourage anyone, I don't care what age, right? Whether you're young or that's why I wrote it the way I wrote it, was that it could span across age ranges. No matter who you are, you can benefit from the book. And if you go read the reviews, I always tell people, just go to Amazon and look up my name, Troy Spry, or look up the title of the book and look at the reviews, right? You still got 5-star reviews and you got comments and people can tell you what they've gotten and taken away from the book. So that's the first thing I will encourage people to go do. Is just go get the book. That'll introduce you to who I am as a person and how I write and communicate. The second thing is I started my podcast with a friend of mine, which is called TNTUnleashed Podcast. And that's an important part of my life now because I pivoted from just being in a relationship space to talking about other things and showing there's a range of things that I can connect on and talk on. It's a little more, it's not as PG-13, as as maybe my book stuff is, but it's a little more real, raw, authentic. But the tagline for it is, this is where authenticity lives and where ego dies. So we talk about life, love, relationships, and everything in between. So that's the tagline for it. So that gives you an idea of what it could be about. So I would tell people to go follow us on Instagram at TNTUnleashed Podcast, and then start listening to us on YouTube. We have some videos. We're starting to do more video on YouTube. So we're kind of getting it going like your channel. We're trying to grow it a little bit. And I would love people to go subscribe to TNTUnleashed Podcast as well.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So Troy, what's one or two things you just kind of want to leave us with? A few things you want to like just emphasize again from our conversation, or any last thoughts you want to leave us with for today from the things we've talked about?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I would say is that reciprocity is rewarding, right? So reciprocity, if we just lead with that in our dating situations, in our relationships, in our marriages, that is how we feel connected and genuine, that people are genuine about us. So start with reciprocity. The second thing is going to be a little bit of a surprise to you because we didn't talk about it a lot here, but start with you, right? I think we all want the answers to the test of dating and the answers to the test of relationship, but none of that matters if you don't have the answers to yourself, right? So that's what I would encourage people to do. If you don't have the answers to yourself, why you are who you are, if you haven't done any self-reflection, if you don't understand where your stuff comes from, that might be the reason why you're having problems in dating and relationships. So start with you.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, so important. And yeah, we could have definitely a whole conversation on that one. That's a big one. That's a big one, because if you don't know who you are, what you want, what you're all about, if you haven't done, whatever work you might need to do to kind of clear some of the things from the past, or things that might be holding you back from being open and available to a relationship, those things are going to show up, and they're going to potentially get in the way of you having the kind of relationship you desire, for sure.
Let me tell you, Michelle, this is my last sentence, and I'll let you close this out. But I've done a lot of work over the last few years inside, right, internal work, and I always say I started finding better intimacy when I started looking more into me, and that has changed my relationship for the better. So I really want to encourage people, like, hear that. Start with yourself, please.
Well, I really don't want to say anything after that, because that's like a truth bomb right there. That's like writer downer right there, right? I love that. Yeah. Thank you, Troy. This has been wonderful to connect with you. Thank you for going deep with me and dancing with me on this interview, and being willing to just, kind of like go with the flow and go all over the place, and sharing with the real and vulnerable stuff, and dropping some great truth bombs. I know this is going to be great for my upcoming book about men, and also valuable. It's going to live on my YouTube channel and help a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. Looking forward to talking again.
Okay, looking forward to it. You take care now.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Be sure to leave your comments about what you're taking away, and give us some love, give some likes, share this video with your friends, people out there that you think would benefit. And thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.